What's up, my people? Hopefully this is let's see if we can get better here. What's up, everybody? Rock Castaldo checking in. This is actually one of my Spirit Flame news sessions, and usually this is only for my patrons on my patrons on Patreon. And I figured I'd do one for live here on YouTube to get more people out there to notice my Patreon and some of the content that we do, because we do all sorts of private videos and Spirit Flame news for Patreon. Wow, the sky is really amazing right now. It's hypnotizing, really intense, some of the stuff that's going on in the sky. The sky tells a lot. The clouds tell a lot of tales out there. What's up, everybody in the chat room? Everybody, what's going on? Thank you guys for joining. This is going to be a Spirit Flame news. What I do with my Spirit Flame news, the Spirit Flame is basically an ancient... Hey Anna. A Spirit Flame is an ancient ritual that's carried on for Italians that is sort of like you're having it's more like a download of ancestral download during meditation. That's the best way I could describe it. It's a connection to your ancestral DNA, and supposedly as long as there's one person that still does the Spirit Flame, the knowledge of the old ways will stay alive and will continue. And there always has to be at least one person left in the world that does the Spirit Flame ritual, or this, at least the Spirit Flame meditation. And it provides basically like a blue flame that dances on top of the bowl. And it's really an intense experience. I've done it live before for some people and for some videos, and I've done it live with Frank Castle before at his house. And usually it's 3 flames that dance on top of the bowl, the ceremonial bowl that you do it in. It's really intense moment, and it's a connection. It's like you have your ancestors basically standing around you, and you can feel them like communicating through the ancient sacred fire, through the ancient sacred flame. Now, today's Spirit Flame news is what I cover in Spirit Flame news is all sorts of occult history, old and new, sometimes how it relates to what's happening currently on our planet. Especially today, I want to say a little shout out and prayer to Japan because of what they're going through. The last few weeks, I've been having a little bit of health issues, some things going wrong, and I do feel that I was under spiritual attack a little bit as well. So we all need some support out there and some connection to our ancestors, and universal prayers would be good for everybody right now. So it's going to be a really hard time for a lot of people, especially spiritual soldiers that are battling the shift of energy that's coming over us. And it's really intense. Now, what I wanted to talk about today in the Spirit Flame news, because like I said, mostly all my Spirit Flame news are only for Patreon. I have dozens of Spirit Flame news videos that are unlisted on YouTube. I only have them available for my patrons on my Patreon, and it's at patreon.com/the mystical spiral. And last night on my show on Truth Frequency Radio was really an awesome episode, but I didn't get into some of the stuff that I had planned. I got into a lot of it, but I didn't get into talk about the Sibylline oracles at all. So I thought it would be good to do a little bit of a Spirit Flame news session on some of the Sibylline oracles. And basically, these oracles are a group of books that were only consulted during the worst in times, like under real dire straits, when something was taking place and they needed prophetical advice. They would go to the Sibylline oracles, which were a group of books from a line of sibyls or seers that recorded their prophecies in these group of scrolls and books over time. Now, a lot of these Sibylline oracles line up with the Revelation prophecies and other prophecies. And I thought it would be interesting if I can share a little bit of these Sibylline oracles today, and how interesting they are. And a lot of people in Christianity in the church considered these valid. They would consult them, even like Justin Martyr and people like this. They would consult the Sibylline oracle books. They were copied various times, and I do believe that the Vatican has some of these still stored within their archives. They said that the Sibyl of Cumae and was linked to Tarquinius and all of these people back in the day, and supposedly she was the one who famously burned some of the Sibylline oracles right in front of him, and then he was only to save about 3 of the books that she had. But there are various books within the Sibylline oracles. The first little section that I wanted to share with you guys is from book 2. Actually, no, it was book 5 too that I wanted to show about. Yeah, so where was it in book 2 that I wanted to first go to? Yeah, so let me see. I have it right here. I just want to first go through. I had 2 sections that I wanted to share with everybody. One of them is now what I feel too is that a lot of the areas that they're describing in the Sibylline oracles that the seers are describing, especially these Sibyls, what they're writing about, the places, the names of the places, I believe are the names of the places that they had at that time. And so we have to sort of translate this sometimes to see, like, if she mentions, say, Babylon, like, we have to look at to see, like, is she talking about like Iraq or something like that. It's equivalent to that nowadays because they didn't have those names back then. So I do feel that a lot of these names are just the names of what they were named back then at the time. So first, let's go. I just want to go right to the 5th book, which is one of the most interesting, I feel, and very intense stuff. There's a part in the third book too. I think I lost my place with that, but I could go back into it later. So let's do the one of the from book 5 of the Sibylline oracles real quick, because this is very interesting. Like I said, let it be known too that some of these places no longer exist, and we have to use the modern day version of this. So let's start right here with where they're talking about Babylon, the Sibylline oracles, and this is in book 5, and it's saying, "Alas for you, O Babylon, who sit on your golden throne and golden footstool, an ancient queen, who alone did command the world, a city formerly great and famous. You shall no longer remain on the golden mountains, by the waters of Euphrates. You shall be thrown down in the time of earthquakes. The cruel Parthians helped you to conquer all, O impure city. Stop your mouth, your generation of the Chaldeans. Neither be careful, nor ask how you shall govern Persia, or how to conquer Medes. For he that desired your empire, for which he has hostages, sent to Rome those who served as soldiers in Asia. Therefore, you are a wise queen, shall have the same judgment as the Athenians," which is like the Greece, "for whom you paid a ransom, and you will suffer severely from your enemies for the perverse words you have given them." Now, first off, it's talking about Babylon falling inside of an earthquake. Now, if you have in Revelation the angel with the seventh vial, uh, says Babylon will fall by an earthquake as well, and it says right here that she formerly was on the seat of the Babylonian Empire and at last fell into the Turkish hands, and the Parthian kings were made by the Romans in the time of Augustus, but they soon rebelled and revolted from the Romans. And the Romans kept hostages at Rome, but it could, so you can relate it to all that as well. And but you can even look at it in a more modern time as, Greece in dire straits with money right now. That's referenced there. And what's coming up in this next part is very interesting as well. So the sea shall dry in the last times. So this is talking about now, basically. The sea shall dry up in the last times, and ships shall not sail into Italy. Then great Asia, which is very fruitful, shall be covered by water. Now, this is very interesting because Asia is very rich right now with money, right? And so they might not be talking about fruitful with land. They might be talking about finances. When Italy is going to be dried up, the seas surrounding Italy is going to where sails can't sail. Is this because of volcanic eruptions and they're hardening? Is it because of something like this? They're talking about this, and they're saying, and in Revelation 16, they talk about the sea and the islands. There's no sea, no in the island. And then in they say great Asia, which is very fruitful, shall be covered by water. And they say Crete, which is Greece, shall be a field, and Cyprus shall suffer much damage, and Paphos shall suffer a terrible fate, which may make it wise. The great city Salamis shall suffer great calamity, and the land, listen to this, now this is very interesting, and the land shall be barren on the shore again, and a great number of caterpillars shall destroy the land of Cyprus, and the men shall look upon Tyre, shall weep. Now, what are they talking about here? Now, they're getting these prophetical visions, and sometimes they don't have the vocabulary and reference to what they're seeing in the future. So they're seeing these a great number of caterpillars that destroy a whole land and civilization. What are they talking about here? Are they talking about little microbes, little bacteria, little nanomachines? Are they talking that look like little caterpillars? So very interesting. Like a little viruses. Now it's something that they could not reference back then. They didn't have the science. They didn't have the technology back then to think about it. So maybe someone who's getting a prophetical view of the future would see these things as little caterpillars everywhere that's destroying the land, destroying the whole civilization. That when men saw it, it would just cause any man to weep, any man to cry. And then it goes on to say even more right here in the book. And these are, many pages but I'm just picking one little section. Because if you look into that an account in the Revelation is in chapter 16 in Revelation, verse 20. They have that all islands fled away, and all the mountains were not found, and this immediately follows the fall of Babylon. So it lines up with these Sibylline oracles. Both in Revelation and the oracles, they have this comparison. So the next part of this, of book 5 in the Sibylline oracles that I'm reading, goes on to Phoenicia. And Phoenicia, you have to now look at this as for modern day. It is Lebanon. This is where you have Baalbek. This is where you have Mount Hermon. This is where you have the city of obelisks and all of these places of Baal and Nimrod. And Lebanon is a very high-tech spiritual technology was there at one time. And of course the Romans built upon that. The Phoenicians were using these locations to worship Baal, and to worship the ancient god Set. This is and so it talks about Phoenicia here. So remind you, when you're hearing Phoenicia here in the Sibylline oracles, you're thinking about Lebanon. And it says, "O Phoenicia, great wrath is reserved for you, until you fall, that the Syrenes may truly lament at your ruin. There shall be in the 5th generation, when the destruction of Egypt shall cease, the shameless king shall mix with other generations of all people, who shall settle them in Egypt. There shall be a war in Macedonia, Asia, and Lycia, which will perplex the world, and be very bloody, and burn all to ashes, which the king of Rome and the western princes shall cause to cease. Mind-blowing right there. So what are we talking about here? The king of Rome, the Pope, probably, the Vatican, western princes, the presidents, shall cause to cease. There will be no more governments. There will be no more Vatican. And there shall be war all over that's very bloody, that will perplex the world because of its good morning everybody. It'll perplex the world because of its weird technology and war and what's going to be upon us is in artificial intelligence. And I truly believe that it's relating to that. Now, some scholars believe that they're talking about the destruction of the Phoenicia from the Macedonian War, and that was in Asia and Lycia. And but remind you, Phoenicia is mostly Muslims, and country of Lebanon. That's where it usually is right now, right? It's a Muslim area, country of Lebanon, and we're at war right now in all of these areas. It's taking place right now. It says then, when the winter blasts shall bring much snow, the great river being frozen up, and the great fens, which are like marshes, swamps. Presently a barbarous people shall come into Asia, and destroy the terrible stock of the Thracians, now easily destroyed. The melancholy mortals shall eat their ancestors, being tormented by hunger, and swallow greedily such meats, and every house will yield a table to all wild beasts, and the birds shall eat all men, and the sea shall be filled with the wicked, from the rivers in which the bloody bodies swim, as well as the blood of foolish men. Then there will be such a little city upon the earth, that the number of men and women may be easily reckoned. Now, some scholars think this is about the invasion of the Tartars near Thrace. That was in a hard winter, that they were coming over the river of Danube and the fens, which are marshes of Maeotis. Now, this is similar also to the second vial in Revelation, where the sea is turned into blood. But some people, I believe it's the last destruction of our civilization that they're actually talking about, not the one before the millennium. They even talk about then here, the miserable generation in the western countries will lament infinitely, for fear the remaining part of the ocean shall not return to wash them with its waters. For it saw the impure wickedness of many men. A palpable darkness shall cover the whole heaven, and a thick fog the valleys of the earth. But the light of God shall lead good men who have praised them. Now, then it goes on to say, O Isis, the unfortunate goddess, you shall continue at the waters of Nile alone, mad and raging upon the sands of Acreon, and you shall no more be remembered through all the earth. And you, Serapis, placed on a rock, shall grieve much, and lie a monument of ruin in miserable Egypt. And then they in Egypt, which desired you, shall all lament you grievously. All that have an immortal soul in men, and as many as praise God, shall know that you are nothing. Now, it can be interpreted all different ways. I plan on doing a huge breakdown of these verses coming up. So I thought it would be interesting real quick to share this amazing prophetical oracles that were looked at as the holiest of holy to the ancients. They were looked at in times of dire troubles. And this was my Spirit Flame news for today. Hopefully I have a family outing to do this afternoon, but hopefully we can all connect later on tonight. Thank you everybody for joining. I appreciate your support. I have new crystals available, all sorts of things available on my website. I'm trying to get the word out there. So this is my Spirit Flame Noon that's available to the public. Usually these are only private. So thank you for joining. I definitely suggest you guys check out my show last night on Truth Frequency Radio. It really kicked ass. Thank you for joining me, and Spiral out.